everybody, my name is Atefan, and welcome to a sort of a different speed of video than what I normally upload, because what I have been doing is majority gaming videos, and obviously that is a hobby of mine, and something that I think translates very well to YouTube, so I have been doing that, but I wanted to sort of share something different. Because I realized over the course of how I've been running this channel, I haven't done a good job of always necessarily kind of putting myself out there and explaining who I am. And I'm not gonna, go crazy into detail. But this is a video that I've wanted to make for a while because I wanted to showcase? Yeah, that's a good word. Showcase one of my passions that I've had for many years, which is photography. And I want to share that because that's something that I think, I am very passionate about and something that I think is worth sharing. And will help contextualize me somewhat. I mean, I have mentioned it in a few videos, and if you've seen all my videos, then you've probably heard me mention it. But I haven't mentioned it very often, so you might not. But either way, this is going to be me showcasing that passion and showcasing some of the photographs that I have taken, going into them a little bit, not crazy, not super technical, but, explaining the time and the emotions and everything around it, all the stuff that goes with it, and sort of talk about photography and why I love it so much, and probably tell you that you should do it too, because frankly, it's a great thing to do, and I think everyone should at least try it because it's very fun, and I very much enjoy it. So, but I have been yapping, and you probably just want to see the photographs. So let's get into them. So we're starting off with a picture that you might find quite familiar, because this picture is, in fact, the picture that I've been using for my channel banner, for my channel icon, and everything on YouTube. Granted, the one I'm using for my channel banner and stuff had a little bit of, effects added onto it to make it a little more artsy and a little more cool for that purpose. But this is the image that it comes from. This is the image that it comes from, which is a picture of Delicate Arch from Arches National Park in Utah. Now, this is a picture where I remember this day very well because, you see, Delicate Arch specifically has one of the problems that I have with photography, or one of the problems that I encounter when trying to do photography, is the better way to phrase that, is people, okay? Because I am a landscape photographer. So there are plenty of people who like to have people in their pictures, or they take pictures primarily to take pictures of people, to take pictures of their friends, family, whatever, and that's fine, I understand that, to each their own. But I am someone who likes landscape photography, which means I want the landscape. I don't want people, I don't want any of it. I don't like taking pictures with cities and buildings and like anything. Like, I just, pure nature is how I like to take pictures. So naturally, but Delicate Arch is very pretty. And naturally, as a result, people want to get their picture taken under it. I mean, again, I understand. You want to commemorate your visit, and you're not a photographer. That's fine. But it's the fact that people are so impatient that whenever there's so... If you see on the left side of the arch there, there's like whatever. But people love to get there to get their picture taken, which again, to each their own. But you have the issue of people are impatient. So as soon as one couple, family, whatever, is leaving that spot, the next person in line, because it will genuinely form a line, will go up and try to get their picture taken. And so there's like such a small window of time when you can actually get a good shot without someone in it, because I don't want to go back and edit it out later because it'll look worse, and it's a ton of work that I don't want to do. And of course, being this at the end of a very long hike, it's kind of frustrating because, I want to get my picture. I just did, like a mile hike up a steep incline, and I want to get my pictures. And that said, there is a nice area that you can sit down, so you can kind of just sit and chill and wait for your opportunities. And I did. I sat up there taking pictures of the arch for probably 45 minutes, 30 minutes, 45 minutes, something like that, because I was just trying to get the right shot. But it's a very pretty shot, and I very much like it. And yeah, you've seen it all over the place with my channel banner and stuff. So that's where I figured we'd start. And now we'll move on to another photo. So this is a photo that is probably my absolute pride and joy. This is a photo that I took back in 2020, which was about when I was starting to get back into photography. So to contextualize that a little bit, I've been doing photography for a very long time. Probably since I was about 4 years old is when I first picked up a camera. Granted, it was a pretty crappy, point and shoot camera. It was not like the DSLRs that I use now, but nonetheless, that's when I first really picked up a camera, and it became kind of just a hobby of mine. My dad was a photographer, and so I picked it up from him, and it was a good way to get me to shut up on hikes so I would continue hiking, and it worked. I would love to hike. It's made me so I love to hike, and I love to take pictures. But there was a wild period where we weren't really able to get on vacations very much, and so I kind of fell off with photography. I didn't really do it as much because we didn't go on vacation and hike and do all these things. So that kind of naturally pushed it out of my life for a little bit. But this was around when I started getting back into it. We finally took a trip, went hiking, and I finally took some pictures again, and that was a year prior to this. Was when that really happened. But this made me realize I wanted to, do more. I wanted to get a new camera because I had an old, not full frame camera, and I wanted to get a full frame camera and really start to, do this again. And this was when I first really was using that full frame camera that I got. And this photo was just amazing, right? As you can see, it's a photo of a flower and there's a bee in it. And this was just a random pull-off. We just saw some sacred datura, which is what the flower is. It's a sacred datura. We saw some along the side of the road, and there was a pull-off, and we thought, why not? We'll stop, because it's a pretty flower. I mean, you can see it right there. It is quite pretty. And then there were bees around it, which, granted, at the time, I was very afraid. I'm not going to lie. I'm not a big bug person, and I was like terrified around the bees because bees sting. Scary. I've gotten better with it since because I've done more stuff like this and tried to because of how great this photo was. But this is something where I'm like, as much as I think I did a good job framing it and all these kinds of things, this was pure luck, right? The fact that that bee was in such a nice position, the fact that it just looked so good in that flower was pure chance. It was pure happenstance. It was pure, I was right place, right time. But it is a gorgeous photo. And as you can see, I've done a little bit of editing on it. Mostly what I did was I turned everything in the picture black and white except for the bee. Because that, as a technique, kind of makes it so the bee pops more, right? This is going to get a little bit into the technicals of photography, and I'm not going to go too deep. But the general principle is you want the eye to catch on what you want it to catch on, right? You want your focus point, your subject, your prime, whatever, to be where your eye catches. And so by doing this, the bee being the most vibrant piece, by being still in color, draws your eye to the bee. And so it's creating the desired, way that we're going to draw the eye to the bee. And I just think it looks really pretty. I think it was a good way to edit it, and I'm very proud of it. I'm very proud of this photo in general. I love it. It actually hangs in my house. We got it printed because it just looks so good, and I love it. Yeah, this photo is amazing, and I love this photo. But let's get on to another one, because we got plenty more to go. So here I've made a little collage of 4 of my photos that I took just a year ago, actually, a little over a year ago, in the Arches and Canyonlands area. Now, these are 2 national parks in southern Utah that are both kind of near each other. They're like you would stay in the same place to go to both. They're right around each other, so I kind of lumped them together, and they were all taken the same year. And this just showcases a little bit of black and white photography, because I love black and white. I think creating good contrast in black and white just looks so good. I think you can see in any one of these photos the good contrast, and I just think they're all very pretty. You've got one which is Mesa Arch, which is the one in the top right. In the top left, you've got just a nice scenery over the windows area in Arches National Park. The bottom left is just a photo of Canyonlands. It's just kind of the canyon, and it's such an interesting place because you have a canyon that drops beneath you, and then there's another canyon in the canyon, and it's like wild to see, and it's very, very pretty. And then the bottom right is just a photo I got because there was this, I think it's a crow, maybe. I'm not an ornithologist, so don't quote me on that. But regardless of what type of bird it was, there was a bird there, and he was just chill. I think he was posing, to be honest. Like, sometimes I swear animals will just pose for photos, and it's lovely. And then he was just there, and he was cool looking, so I took his photo. But these are all just photos, and they kind of showcase black and white because I love black and white. I think it just looks so good, and I hope you think it does too, because but I also, that's the thing about editing is I can also have these in because they were taken in color. So I have the color versions as well. I just personally prefer the black and white. And yeah, these are just 4 photos that I find very pretty. So yeah, but without further ado, let's get into some other photos, because now we're going to get into something quite interesting. And then we're going to get to something even more interesting. So we've got plenty to come. Don't worry. So here's where we get into something quite interesting. And the reason I say it's quite interesting, because much though this photo looks quite normal, it looks like a quite normal black and white edit. And for the most part it is, except this photo was actually taken with an infrared camera. Now, what that means is a standard camera takes standard light photos. It takes in light and it takes a photo and it takes in all the vibrant colors that you see before you when you're actually, there. But an infrared camera is one that has been converted such that the sensor actually sees infrared light. So the actual raw image of this picture is a very kind of ugly looking red mess, right? It looks the same in terms of like you can see the distinct forms and the landscape and stuff, but it's very, very red. It's very bright red because obviously it's seeing infrared light. What's neat about an infrared camera, so you can do this in a couple ways. You can either put a filter on a lens to do infrared, but that is more complicated because I believe, and don't quote me on this because I don't remember, but I believe that requires a lot more exposure, so you kind of have to sit there on a tripod for a lot longer. Or you can have a camera with its sensor converted to infrared, which allows you to take photos like a standard camera, except in infrared. And so I had that done on one of my older cameras, because I wanted to try it, because infrared photography is neat. And there's two things you can do with infrared photography, right? So infrared photography has a couple of things, because you can either, one, try to turn infrared back to color, which is an interesting process that you can do, and it kind of creates weird, almost alien-looking landscapes. You can kind of create really neat, more artistic type photos, less, realistic, at least in their color. Or infrared is really good for creating high contrast black and white. And that's the main reason why I got an infrared camera, because I love black and white, as I just mentioned. And I mean, look at it. Obviously, a lot of credit to Castle Valley, because this monument is just gorgeous. And I had never seen it before this trip we took in 2024. It was just a year ago. But I had never seen this before. There's a little scenic road you can take back in the LaSalle Mountains near Arches, where you can get into Castle Valley and see this, and it's gorgeous. It's a very, very pretty area. I remember we rounded a bend and saw this in the distance. We were like, we've never been here before. Like, that's because it's beautiful. It's a really beautiful area. But I love the black and white. I love the way the infrared did it. I think it looks great, and it's gorgeous. But now is where we're going to get into something very, very interesting. So let's do that. As I promised, we've gotten into something very interesting. And of course, it's interesting because, as you can probably tell, this is astrophotography. Now, this is something that I got into very recently. I think it was maybe 2021, I think, was when I got into it. I went out at night at one point when we were at Joshua Tree and sort of started taking pictures and got some stuff, but, it was a couple stars and not much. And then I started to research how you actually do astrophotography and capture, the galactic center of the Milky Way. Which is what you can see pictured here. And it's gorgeous, right? I think the pictures are gorgeous, and I love them. These were taken in Sedona and at Arches. But what I love about night photography in particular, beyond the fact that it creates gorgeous, gorgeous shots, is the fact that there's just something so peaceful about going out at nighttime in these very dark, remote places. And, there is just an absolute aura to the night sky and the absolute vastness of the universe. As you stare up at the night sky, you feel so small. Like, honestly, I cannot overstate how much you feel tiny in the grandeur of the Milky Way, of the grandeur of the galaxy, of the universe, space in general. And it's amazing to be there. It's so peaceful and it's so nice and calm, but it's, again, the grandeur is just, it's amazing. If you haven't gone out and tried to stargaze at night, even if you're not going to take pictures, even if you don't have a telescope, in somewhere like Arches where it's just very, very dark, if you haven't done that, I highly, highly cannot overstate how highly I recommend doing it, because there is just something so amazing about it that I think everyone should experience it at least once. Because it is it doesn't compare. There's absolutely nothing that compares to that. And of course, for me, it creates very pretty shots. And editing these is definitely a little more tricky, because what you end up doing is you have two shots, right? So you have one that has a very dark landscape from which you get the stars from, and the other is a picture that is more overexposed, so you get the ground, you get the foreground, the landscape and all the rocks and stuff, a lot brighter. So then you can kind of fuse the two together so that you can see the stars very well, and you can also see your landscape quite well. And I think it's gorgeous. And we are getting near the end of, I have plenty more photos, but these are some of the better ones that I think I've taken, and the ones that I've actually gone through. There are plenty of photos that I haven't even edited. So, but there's one left, and this one is special. This one is very, 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 very pretty. So I'm excited to show this one off. So let's get to it. And we've now reached the final photo that I'm going to show off in this video. But man, this one I absolutely adore. You see, this is a shot, first of all, it's an astrophotography shot, obviously. That's from Zion National Park, and this is of the Watchman, which is one of the premier monuments in Zion. It's a gorgeous, gorgeous mountain that you can get pictures of. But this shot that I got here was one that I had been waiting to get for months when I took it. Because you see, we went to Zion in over spring break this year. Not this year, but 2023, the year that I got this photo. And I had seen this shot as an option when we were out hiking then. But with the position of the Milky Way in spring, it wasn't at a good position to take this shot. And I knew it would be at summer. So when we came back in the summertime, I was finally able to get this shot a couple months later. And I had been waiting to get this shot, because what I think is very neat about this shot is, one, the Watchman is gorgeous, and getting the Milky Way over the Watchman is just absolutely pretty. But what's nice is, you're also taking a photo above a river. This is, I believe, the Virgin River in southern Utah. And what's neat about it is the fact that by getting the river, you get this kind of nice, flowy, misty water effect, which is what you get when you expose moving water for a long time. And obviously, by nature of having to take at night, you are exposing it for a long time. So you not only get the Milky Way in this nice, monument with it, this nice foreground, but you also get the river. And I think it's just a very, very neat photo. I think, this one I am also very proud of. I think it looks great. I love it. And this is just one of the premier astrophotography shots that I have gotten, and I wanted to show it off because I love it so much. And I hope you do too. I hope you find it pretty, because that's neat, and I don't know. But so now let me sort of, just say I want to thank you all if you've watched this far. Because that's very neat. And, this is obviously something that's a very different speed, and I'm trying to give more about myself and what I do as a hobby outside of stuff like gaming and YouTube and whatnot. And if you stayed this far, then I appreciate it. I really, really, really do. I don't want to understate that, because, it's great. And, and I hope you enjoyed the photos. If you did, please feel free to put anything in the comments down below, because I really would appreciate it. And anything you have to say one way or another would be great. I love getting feedback on all things YouTube in general. So if you want to put stuff in the comments, please do, on any video ever, because I like engaging with the community a lot. And so, and I try to respond to comments as much as I'm physically able. I maybe don't get to everything, and always respond, because sometimes I don't even have anything to respond to necessarily, but I try to, because I like engaging. And so if you have anything, please feel free, put everything in the comments down below. But yeah, I do hope you really did enjoy. And I hope giving a little bit more about myself was nice, and I hope this kind of helps you understand who I am a little bit better and all that. So I'm going to leave this, though. I've been yapping for not that long. But yeah, I've got nothing much more to say about photography at this moment. Will I do this more in the future? Probably. I haven't been able to go out and hike and take photos for a few months now, but I will be able to go do that soon, probably, and get back into it. And as I get more stuff, I will try to do this, because I think it would be neat. And I think, especially if this receives good feedback, then I definitely will try to do this in the future. So stay tuned for that. But yeah, I got nothing else to say, so cue the outro. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you liked it, please consider subscribing, because that would really help me out. It would really help to grow the channel, and I'd really appreciate it. You can do that on the little icon in the top right. Below that is a video that YouTube thinks you might like, and you should go check that out because you might like it, and that'd be pretty neat. And as always, comments are always appreciated in the comment section down below, so please feel free to toss anything you have down there. But I have been yapping for a very, very long time, so I will see you all in the next one. Bye-bye!